What video game will we work on today? Game Boy Advanced. Let's go. What Game Boy Advance game will we work on today? Well, you know, they can't all be winners. Let's give it a shot. Disclaimer time, I am not a professional, I am an amateur. I may say things that are silly and not actually accurate. I am learning how to repair, so don't consider this a tutorial, but rather an entertainment video. Alright, enough gabbing, on with the repair process. What's the first thing we do when we get a game? We test. We got our Game Boy SP, or Advanced SP if you want to be technical. Game Boy, no logo. I believe that when it has the Nintendo logo down here, it has a check for security. So now we're not seeing anything on here and the game is not booting, so let's go ahead and let's do the second thing when we have a broken game. Can you guess what it is? Clean the pins. Pop that over and let's go ahead and grab Steve, the carpal tunnel saver. And we also need our tri-wing adapter. Although we could do this with a small flathead screwdriver. The tri-wing is the technical version. Let's put a nose on to Steve and put him into angry mode. And there we go. And now we are in. I have not worked on a Game Boy Advance game before, so let's go ahead and check out the board really quickly and pry it out of its case. Doesn't have any pins on the back like the Game Boy games. And is there anything obvious? Pins are dirty. They got some gunk on them. Look a little cloudy. Let's go ahead and see. Let's go ahead and get these pins cleaned up. And for that, I like to use some Wyman glass stovetop cleaner and polish. And we just need to add a little bit onto a Q-tip and go ahead and work on these pins. I like the stovetop cleaner as opposed to Brasso. It's a lot less abrasive and aggressive. Yeah, it's some dark spots on this Q-tip. I just kind of go over with the dry end of it, of the Q-tip. Nice clear shot of my hand. And for the last step, I like to take a paper towel with some 91% isopropyl alcohol or rubbing alcohol, the Worcestershire sauce of electronics. Let's take a look at the work we have just done. Shiny. Lamb things are pretty. All right. We will avoid the confidence screw today and see if we can't just sandwich it in. And let's see if it works now. Oh, Nintendo logo. Ha ha ha. There we go. Well, that was easy. Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Yeah, it looks like it's working fine. And I didn't want to put a screw on. How silly. The hubris of me, myself. I have no idea what this game's about, aside from it's the ant bully. Who wants to read in video games? Not me. I still cannot afford an IPS screen for my Game Boy, so we will have to squint. Like and subscribe so I can afford an IPS screen. Oh, so quickly I have shilled for the likes and subs. Probably a $10 game on eBay. So we'll probably send that off to eBay at some point. Alright, well, thank you for watching. That's all. No, just kidding. I'm gonna go ahead and spin the Wilkin. That was super easy. Maybe we'll find another one. And this will be just one super quick video, but let's go ahead and try spinning the wheel again. Let's give the wheel another spin. Game Boy. Original Game Boy. Ba 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 ba. Pocket, side pocket for the Game Boy. Okay, looks like somebody's been into it. Let's go ahead and check it out. And of course, the first step is testing. Maybe it's just a case issue. Whoop, I think we're out of power on our Game Boy. I know it's a green light. Let's see. Is it the game or the Game Boy? Got a little bit of a green light there. It's odd. Okay, so when we put the game in, nothing. There's a green light, so it's not just a bad battery or a low battery. And when we take the game out, Game Boy logo. So that is very interesting. I always thought that it would have had that Game Boy logo, so I wasn't having the Game Boy logo. That's weird. Let me try Ample again and see if there's any difference. Maybe it is a low battery. No, that is strange. Huh. What would cause that issue? Is it some sort of corrosion, maybe? It just like nuked the SP. I don't know what the deal with this would be. It's just being held on by tape, it looks like. And take the top, put it off to the side, and this just comes out. Okay, well, how do the pins look? They look a little cloudy. I don't see any. This looks a little weird, a little bit. And it looks like it has extra solder here, but it looks the same way on the left side too. So maybe that's something. Let's go ahead and clean the contacts up, and then we will look at this. Okay, nothing too horrible. Okay, let's take a look at that up close and personal. That looks a lot better. Shiny. Well, let's see if that was the problem. And now, nothing. That's interesting. It's so strange because it doesn't have the logo at all. It doesn't have the Game Boy or the Nintendo logo. So what I'm wondering, it's weird because thinking through this logically, because when we turn the console on, the game console itself puts this out because there's nothing in the cartridge slot. So what would be on this that would cause it to stop the inner workings of the Game Boy from like displaying that splash screen? That is, I don't understand why that would be happening, because again, nothing in the cartridge slot and we get the Game Boy logo. Okay, actually let's look at this a little bit better. It almost look like there's a little bit extra solder on these resistors as well. Wonder if there's a cold joint. It's just, to me, logically, thinking of the and I'm no expert at all. I'm just self-taught and everything, all this stuff. But whatever is happening with the Game Boy, with the logo there, putting this game in stops it from getting to that logo. How is that even possible? Is there something that is faulty on this board that is saying, hey, don't do this, or I'm drawing too much power, or I'm interfering somehow? That is just so strange. You know what? I got an idea. This might be stupid. It should be okay. We'll just give it a shot. So let's go ahead and put it back. I wonder. All right, what happens if we turn this on and then put this in? Will it? Okay, the Game Boy okay, interesting. See that? Look, it even froze the oh, so look at that, it's degrading. That is strange. I don't know how good the camera's picking up, but it's like the frame rate. It's almost giving it some artifacts. It's almost trying to load into something. That is so fascinating. The Game Boy logo is fading and it's getting artifacts. That is weird. Whatever is happening is this game here is messing up this Game Boy so bad that it's messing with the CPU or something, or maybe some RAM chips on the Game Boy. That is like fascinating, because again, if the Game Boy turns on, it's got that Game Boy logo, but if we put this game in, all of a sudden it's like throws everything out of whack. That is very interesting. I know I'm rambling on, but to me that's fascinating. So what would be able to cause that? I mean, because when there's a loose connection on these ROM chips, usually you have the Game Boy logo and you don't have the Nintendo logo, because I believe, and now I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I heard somewhere that when the Game Boy has the Nintendo logo, that is a security check to make sure that the game isn't copyright or it's not bootleg. So if it doesn't have that, then it can't communicate with the Game Boy, and the Game Boy can't play it. But to not have the Nintendo logo or the Game Boy logo is just so strange. Could it be the ROM chip that is just throwing everything out of whack? We have two options. We go to the Microscope, solder all this stuff up, see if it's just a loose connection or some weird freak of nature thing. Or I might get on Facebook and ask my Facebook group, what's the deal, bro? Why isn't this working? Maybe they'll have an idea. Might do it anyways, because that's such a weird glitch to have of the thing not even able to have anything on there. That's just weird. So I might not be a genius, but I know when something's wrong. So, and it doesn't seem to be something that is super obvious, or at least to my skill and knowledge. Okay, so I've talked to my Facebook group and I sent them a picture and some information, and they said that the pins look a little dirty. So it was either the picture I sent them or the pins are actually dirty. So we'll have to go over them again and make sure that they are clean. The other thing people were saying was there looks like there's too much solder on the resistors, which I already thought about, and maybe some of the solder joints could be bad, which is another thing we considered. But let's go ahead and rule out the pins for sure. Now, I don't have any brasso, but commonly people like to use erasers. So I'm going to do an eraser first. We also have a stainless steel brush here. Some eraser fluff is coming off. And yeah, that's looking pretty shiny still. Maybe that was the issue. That'd be pretty sad. But good to know if the Wyman glass stovetop cleaner is not doing the job. We shall find out momentarily. We'll go ahead and brush this off with a little IPA. Isopropanol, propanol, rubbing alcohol. Okay, now let's go ahead and put the backing in there and put this in here. Okay, make sure that's seated good, and no. Okay. All right, well, I guess it wasn't the pins. We're going to have to take this out to the microscope, and we will see if it's perhaps the solder. Try to wick some of the solder up, see if it's maybe there's too much solder on these resistors that's throwing something out of whack. I don't know. Yeah, and so far, maybe we might check the integrity of these pins all just to make sure. Maybe there's some sort of loose connection as well. So let's go ahead and switch over to the microscope. Now with all the soldering done, we found that this ROM chip had a loose pin. We soldered that on. Also hit the resistor legs just to make sure they didn't have too much solder on. We need to clean the pins real quick just to make sure there's no flux, and then we will test. And I have thoroughly cleaned the pins. They are shiny. So if there's anything that's going to be stopping this from working, it's not going to be the pins, hopefully. Place your bets now. Nope. Darn, it's not. Interesting. Well, this one is peculiar. So the pin was loose. We soldered that on. Now the pin's not loose. Do we still have a loose connection somewhere on this board? Maybe over here? I think what we need to do now is get the multimeter, get Monty out, and see if we can get continuity from the tops of these pins and see if everything matches up everywhere. Shouldn't we have this pin going somewhere? Where does this pin go to? Let's see. Maybe this, I don't know, let's check this. Let's check another pin out first before we go through this pin. I don't know. Okay, this one goes here, right? Wait, interesting. So this pin here might be a culprit. Let me go ahead and look this up online and see if we can find a pin out for this. So I've done my research online and I have found a few things. I have found a schematic. I am no genius and I am no professional, so it was kind of Greek to me, but I think we can muddle through it. So the first pin in question is this one up here. Now this one is a little bit different than the one we have, but it is a MBC1B, which is exactly the mapper, which is exactly the memory bank chip controller thingamabob we have. Now I also found this, which is the pinout for the MBC1. It doesn't have the B variant, but I don't know if it makes a difference or not, or if it's just the same or what. But if this is the same, then we look at D0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I know on certain languages, programming languages, they start counting at 0, and I'm serious this is the same way. So pin 1 is D0. So if we look at this, D4 through 0 are data buses. Now, another thing we can look at, because we know this is a data bus, what does it do? I don't know. But we know what it is now. If we look back at our first diagram, or schematic, there is a question mark here. And it is right there where we were measuring. So what I'm assuming is that D1, that D0, pin 1, does not go anywhere, I hope. Now this schematic is a little bit different because it has a capacitor in this schematic, but we have 2 resistors, which also made me think of, what about the resistors? Resistors resist the flow of electricity or the flow of current, and they resist. Is it possible that the resistors are bad? That is something to go on, possibly. But let's stick with this chip first. So one thing we can do, if we can assume, I know on this is all black and white because I have a laser printer and it can't print out in color, but on the color version, these pins have a green line and these have green lines. So we can assume, I hope, that the green line means that it connects to the ROM here. And also, I did find out that this is also referred to as a mapper. So the mapper connects to the mask ROM chip. According to a commenter on Reddit, the mapper does not connect to the pins. It only connects to the mask ROM itself. So we can eliminate trying to go through all these areas. So we have to make sure every point here matches every point here. But I did find one thing out. As far as troubleshooting, this may help us. So this is a DMG BEAN01 flavor of Game Boy cartridges. I happen to just have one of them, which is Batman. This should be the same board. We can look at maybe resistance values and see if they match, assuming this one works. We can also make sure that the Game Boy SP is like not just crazy and it's not working with these older games. We can also do continuity tests, and if we don't find anything here, then we know for sure we can test here, and as long assuming this game works, which we'll find out in a second, then we can go back and forth and say, oh, well, I don't see anything, I don't hear any beeps here, so we can go back and make sure we get a beep here, we don't get a beep here. So I think that will be helpful. Let's go ahead and grab Steve, do flippy on there and unscrew there, and it is exactly identical. And just to make sure, we are gonna just do whoop. There we go. I'm not too bothered by a little mark like that because I don't plan on selling this. So now we know which one is which. Small little green dot there means that that is the Batman game. So now that we know, and this is exactly it, yes, MBC1B. Okay, well, let's go ahead and make sure 100% that Batman does work. Yep, and Batman does work. There, okay, so yeah, it works. So now we have a good working board. We can get some measurements off. Let's do the continuity test first. So let's go ahead and just see if we get any continuity on this first pin. Anywhere here. No. Okay, so we can safely assume that pin 1 does not go anywhere, so we're not going to get continuity over here. Let's go ahead and just move over to side pocket pool, and as far as I can tell, this pin here, which we'll look at in a second, is very suspect. Let's make sure that we got all the other pins before we go too far. Yep, and we got 2 pins that are looking a little bit weird. Okay, well, we got 2 pins on this left side. Let's just make sure that we're not, you know, leaving any stone unturned first, because I want to make sure that there's just these 2 pins that we're having an issue with. So let's go ahead and test this other side. Oh wait, these ones might not be connecting to anywhere, because I think I saw it on the schematics that they don't really connect anywhere. These bottom pins, 5 pins, and these top connect somewhere. These 3 do not, or 4 do not. Okay, that goes to ground. Okay, so we've got what, 3 pins? Now this might just be my amateurishness. So we shall double confirm and triple check. All right, so I just did the measurements again, and these pins do connect down here. So I don't know. I thought the mapper was not supposed to interact with these pins. It's probably normal. We'll check it on Batman in a second. But I did realize one thing. This schematic for the MBC1 is different than this mapper on the MBC1B. Illiteracy strikes again. All right, so because we've got D0 here on this chart, and it's D0 is here on this, and it's kind of like this, I think. I mean, is that right? Because if we got VC, yeah, VD here, and we've got ground here, and we've got ROM. Brother, I don't know. I'm thoroughly confusing myself. So let's just go ahead and set this one out of the way, because we know that this one says MBC1B. So this one is the one we should stick with. Unfortunately, it doesn't show connectivity. Now, I do have this, and it's all crumpled up, because in my hubris, I was like, I don't need that. That's not necessary. But this is also wrong, because the ground is in the wrong area, so I can throw this away again, I guess. All right, well, hubris again. All right. So this is the only one that is actually legitimate. So I don't know where these connect. Let's go ahead and grab Batman. I don't know. I'm rambling. I know I'm rambling. I'm going nuts here. So pin 8. Oh, that's a little different, isn't it? Huh, it's a little bigger on this one. Well, the boards are the same. The boards are the same, so that should be fine. Famous last words. Okay, well, let's see. Pin 8. Let's go ahead and mark pin 8 out on this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's pin 8 right there. Well, let's go ahead and take Batman and trace out these areas. Monty gets a little bit more of a bigger shot this time. Never mind, I gotta move him out of the way 'cause it's too big. Okay. Do we get continuity from here to these pins? No continuity at all. Woohoo, fantastic. There we go. So that is normal. Okay, so that is normal then. Yep, okay, and then this one, this last one. Okay, so we have confirmed that the mapper is connectivity-wise fine. Now let's make sure the ROM's okay, and then we'll move on to the resistor. Let's go ahead and measure from, oh brother, yeah, up here, pin whatever to here. Okay, that's ground. Okay, so now we have done continuity on the ROM chip, and you just have to close your eyes and imagine all that, because it's hard to see the little pins, you know, when the camera's in the way. Okay, now here's the deal. Resistors are the only thing I think we have left, because it could still be the ROM chip. Could still be the mapper. Could be something funky going on inside there. Maybe some sort of, I don't know. Who knows? But let's go and check this ROM or resistor. Now, I think that is a brown line, a black line, an orange line, a green line, and a brown line. I know that it's probably very simple to look that up. But one thing I don't understand is, I know that resistors are not polarized. So this one is backwards from this one. So I don't know how you read it. I mean, there's a thick line. Is that how you go off? You start at the thick line and then go to the slightly smaller line? I don't know. I'm sure that this cinematography is absolutely crisp as well. But hey, we gotta do what we gotta do. So let's go ahead and research a little bit more into resistors. And I have a very basic understanding, but definitely need to study up. All right, I think we're ready to test the resistor. I've done some research, and we hopefully will figure this out maybe together. So the first thing we need to do is take Monty here and put him into horseshoe mode. So as you can see, tiny little horseshoe. And now he is primed to read. So now we look at Batman here. Now one thing, I'm just gonna say this, I already cheated and kind of did a little measurement on this. I have not done anything on side pull, but I did find out that this might be like, oh duh, to some people, but it does matter which orientation you have your probes in. It does matter. Some people it might be like, well duh, but it doesn't matter how you have your probes oriented, and you won't get a reading sometimes if you put it wrong. So that's the wrong way. We switch our probes, and we are getting the wrong reading because I had it in too high of an ohms reading. So we're getting 5.9. I think it's fairly close to 47K. I think that's right. If someone knows more than me about these cartridges, that would be great to know, but I think it's 47-ish thousand, maybe 55,000 ohm resistor. So let's go ahead and test this one out now. We had red over here and black over here. We have to reverse it because it's the same situation, and it's kind of funny because that makes sense why these are reversed. Well, this one's going this way and that one's going this way. Switch our probes and come at this through here just to show that there's no difference in these two. We're getting 5.8. Now that is what our reading is. And now let's take and see if we get the same reading on side pocket pool. 5.5. That sounds reasonably fine. And 5.6. Womp womp. All right, well, womp 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 womp. I was kind of hoping for a smoking gun moment there, but that is not the case. We've done continuity testing, we've done resistance testing. Luckily, I think I found out one more thing before the video ends. So I've been learning a lot about diode mode, and diode mode is here on the multimeter. And I've been watching some iPad repair people and junk, and they were explaining diode mode, how it works and how you use it. And based on my very limited knowledge of how it works and my short memory span, the way it's supposed to work is that the multimeter sends a voltage throughout the circuit, and then it reads what comes back to it. So I don't know what the voltages are, but based off those readings, then you can say, okay, well, if it's reading 794 whatevers, then it's okay. Now, you do need an example of what a good number is, and we have that here. And these are actually a lot less complicated than an iPhone. So what I did was I put it on diode mode, connected my probes, and then I started measuring the side pocket, and I found a few pins that looked a little odd. Everything else was giving about 533 to 700, except for this last pin here, 1246, and there was this pin here, 1246, and then all these other pins were around 700 to 600. And there was 3 pins on here and 1 pin over here on this other side. We always put this on ground. Might have gotten that wrong a second ago, but we'll just assume I did that right. And then pin, I think it's here, right? Yeah, so about 1076. And if we take this and look at this here, this good known Batman working one, and we can look at all of these pins. 633. 633. So all these pins on this mapper are about 600 to 700. So I think we can comfortably assume that this mapper is the culprit, which to me kind of makes sense in a way, because the mapper is going to say, all right, switch the codes to this, this, or that based on voltages. And if this has gone haywire, I'm assuming, and I don't know how these work or the programming language or how it all figures out, but I can only assume that it is giving some really crazy, weird commands to the Game Boy Advance and saying, hey, you shouldn't have a splash logo, you should be in the game already. I don't know if that's how it works, but I'm assuming that the mapper is kaput. as the Russians might say. So I don't think there's anything we can do about this right now because I don't have any spare mappers, and I kind of looked and I don't think you can really buy them. That, I think, is our culprit. Unfortunately, we were not able to fix side pocket pool or whatever this is. So, I mean, no great loss, but still kind of stinks. But, you know, what you gonna do? The good and the bad. Didn't do the ugly. Or maybe this is the ugly, I don't know. But, well, we were one for this video. Thanks for watching. Thank you for 115 subscribers. Also, thank you for any views, likes, and comments. Goodbye. God bless.